Hi everyone, it's Patrick from PADinspections. Today I'm just going through a inspection report that we carried out earlier this year. So this is just to show you basically what our reports look like, and I'm pretty much going to talk as if I was talking to the customer that engages for this inspection. So this was a person that was looking to invest. He was from interstate and he engaged us to carry out a building and pest inspection. So as you can see here, we just take our overall photograph of the house as we walk in, and then you have the customer's details are up here, and then just a random date for this purpose, but just the date of the inspection and time. And it was a building and termite inspection we carried out for, or a timber pest inspection. So what a timber pest inspection is basically we're looking for decay, borers and termites. Some people mistake it for rats and things like that. If there's a major infestation of rats and that, we definitely would be mentioning it, but we're not looking for cockroaches and things like that. It's anything that can basically affect the structure of the home. And obviously the building inspection is obviously that. It's just looking for any issues with the home. And then every report that you should be engaging with any company, they all should be telling you exactly what it is, the scope of the inspection, the Australian standards here for both the building and the timber pest inspection. And then there's any changes, like a special requirements, anything like that you may have asked for. In our instances, we have it on the bottom of our booking forms of if anything there that might change the agreement, and then we just make a note of it within our reporting before we send it out. And as it says here, it's very important to read the entire report. Some people skim it and you might miss some important details, and we always make a note in our emails out to say not to look at it on a smartphone, best to look on a PC or on a tablet to get a good view of everything. And then just here, as the report starts, we kind of make a note of areas that we did inspect and any restrictions. So you can see here we looked at the building interior, roof space, etc. It's very important also to understand any limitations within this inspection. So if we can't get into a certain area, it's good to know that, because we can't comment on those areas. And if there's any issues, like termites are the biggest thing. If we can't get in somewhere, unfortunately there's not much we can do about that. As a company ourselves, we always make it sure we try to get into any tight spaces and things like that, or get on our knees and walk around and look in through different angles just to get some idea what might be happening in an area like that. Look, we have, we're trying to get more techie, I suppose. We have got drones. I've recently just purchased a robot as well that will come pretty soon that I can put in underneath the house into different areas, and it's got a really good camera and very low to the ground. And that kind of comes back to just a section here, but it's a visual inspection only. So basically a non-invasive inspection is that we can't come in and start moving furniture around, cutting into walls or removing insulation and things like that, because it's not our home and you don't own it yet either. So we're only allowed to do work within moisture meters, checking things from what we can see, and then using our experience to try and determine what might be happening behind an area. And again, there are lots of clauses in our report, and unfortunately we can't get out of that. So it's an extremely high risk industry. You're looking at very old homes, things could be covered up, etc. And our insurance company dictate how these are written. So the insurance company basically give you, I suppose, essentially a template with the clauses in it, and if you don't have those in there, you're not insured. So we have to put them in. We don't rely on our clauses. We haven't never had to really come back and say to anybody, look, it says it here, we can't do X, Y and Z. People are pretty open to it, but sometimes people get a bit worried when they see certain areas that we can't see behind walls and things like that. So just to be aware that these are pretty much stock standard across the industry with anybody that you might engage. These terms and conditions or these clauses have to be in there. And at the start of every report, you'll always see a table of contents. So these are just areas that we were able to inspect and get around and make some comment on. At the start of our report as well, we have a major and minor defect summary. So that just gives you an idea of what to expect in the report. There are main items that we picked up. So everything else is we just make notes, but these are the main ones. So you can see here that there was two major items documented. One is actually a major defect and the other's mainly got to do with safety, so you'll see that further down. And this is just a list of the minor things, so you kind of get an idea of what to expect. But it's very important not to just look at the summary and walk away. You really have to take your time and read the whole report. So this is just property and inspection information. So it's just the conditions on the weather conditions on the day. Probably best for people in regards to getting quotes from insurance company is just we have a description of the property, so you can insert this information into any online quoting system that you're using and get an idea of what costs might be involved. And this is what we discussed about access and restrictions earlier. And then you have the water and gas, electricity was connected. So this is the old switchboards here, and they are outdated, so it's just important to get those upgraded to a more modern system, especially if you're going to be renting it out, as this person was going to be. So you need to get that done for compliance to get at before you let any tenant in there. And this is just where the actual, the surrounding area starts to get documented. So you have got a concrete driveway, etc., and the concrete footpath at the back, which has got some common cracks to find. So we generally weren't more concerned, didn't feel like you had to replace anything here, but it is good to know that you have some issues starting to develop, and that we don't know who poured the concrete, whether to put any reinforcing steel or anything like that in there. So it's really just what we consider a monitoring defect. It could have been like this for many years, so it's really, there wasn't a case of recommending you come in and remove it and reapply it. It's not, from an investor's point of view, it's definitely, they're not looking to upgrade everything straight away, so they would like to do it over time. So the fences here, there was no issues to report, so we don't take any photographs generally, and the surface drainage looked pretty good overall. Again, it's another reason why we put in the weather conditions as well, because it was bone dry during this period of time. We can't tell other than trying to see some residue and things like that in areas to determine if there's any ponding. We do check for levels and that all right, but it was nothing obvious here, and any trees are looking pretty okay. So then the roof exterior, so we with these old terracotta tile roofs, we don't walk on them, so we get the drone up, we do a front and back photograph so the client can see what we're looking at, and then we just document if there's any issues. So what you would generally expect to find is the hips or the line that come down here on either side. So we generally, on these older roofs, you do expect to find the mortar deteriorating, and we fly the drone down close to document that. When in this case everything was pretty good, so there was nothing to document, as in the roof did not need to be repointed. And then it says here we have some flashings that would have minor rust. So these are your valley flashings here. You can see the rust is starting to develop on them, and you have some surrounding trees, so that might be allowing debris to build up over time. So you just want to make sure you're up there maintaining it. We didn't feel that the roof here needed the flashings replaced. However, we do recommend getting some rust inhibitor at the very least, just to prolong the life of it until the investor decides they want to spend a bit more money on the roof and the house. The gutters are all pretty good overall, so nothing of any concern here. And as you can see here, we just got the hot water unit, which we always test, and just document the type that you have and things like that. So it is a gas hot water unit, so nothing of any concern. So these are coming down to the exterior of the home. So we do overall photographs, so as many angles as we can. So you got the front and side here, and the back and the side and on the second photograph. And you can see there are different materials. So you got some brick at the front, along the driveway you have some weatherboard, and then you got lightweight cement sheeting at the back. And there is some cracking on this property, so we have categorized it as 0 to 2. So that's some category or ways that we're supposed to assess brickwork and things like that. So we have categories of 0 to 2, which is just settlement cracks, and then categories 3 to 4 is where you need we have what we consider major defect. So it's very important to understand that, which they are documented down further, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So there's some hairline cracks here. Look, there is a tree in the vicinity, but we have determined that it was nothing major. So there's a category 0 to 2. So we have put down no significant structural concerns were identified. So this is a section of the house that we recommend monitoring rather than having to take any immediate action. You can see also then on the weatherboards, you have some sections here. I've got some minor decay developing, and quite often this is on the southern side of the house. So we always educate our clients on, when you're buying a weatherboard home, it's really important to stay on top of the maintenance. So the maintenance will obviously be the painting, but also trying to ensure that there's no gaps in the flashings and things like that where water can run down and sit on the weatherboards, and especially on the southern side where it's not getting much sun, and you could have overshadowing houses next door and things like that as well. So it's really important just to stay on top of that, because you go from maintaining to actually having to replace sections. So it's kind of a stitch in time saves 9 kind of thing. And just as you could see in the roof exterior earlier, that the valleys are coming down at different angles, so water would potentially build up there if you got debris blocking the way, so you can overflow it here. So just kind of general maintenance as well. Here you have just the overall photographs of the garage out the back. So you can see you're taking a photograph of the drone of the roof. You've got a little bit of rust developing on the roof here, which is just very minor, so just a general maintenance as well. Now, as mentioned, there is the categories that we're guided by, and you can see here that I've put down that this is a category 3 in this section here. So you can see where there's a bit of stepping in the brickwork on both sides, and this was quite an interesting one because everywhere out apart from this section, the walls are perfectly plumb. So you can see here there's a gap there between the level. So what I determined on this, that kind of having a holistic view of it and looking at it from a investor's point of view, or even any homeowner actually, is just to go, look, this section here is an isolated area, and I determined that maybe it was hit by a car or something like that had moved it. So everywhere else was considered to be structurally sound. So what I actually advise, when just monitor it for a bit, and potentially you can always put some sort of steel reinforcing here just to kind of keep it in place, but it wasn't causing any issues with the roof line or anything like that. So the customer was quite happy with that and was willing to just monitor it and see if anything changes over the next 12 months and then keep going again each 12 months. So then we'll just move our way into the interior of the house. So we start at the front door and we work our way around. So my way of doing it is I make my way around room by room, section by section, and I go around the house twice. So I start with my termite inspection section of it first, and then come back and do my building inside of it. So you can see here, front door, smoke alarms are assessed, and everything was in place. And then you have the hallway, which was no concerns there. And again, we just document everything, as many photographs as we can, just to give you an idea what we're looking at and any limitations, like we obviously can't see behind this linen cupboard here and things like that. So just good to understand what we're seeing as well. And here you have the back of the house as well, which is nothing of any big concern. You have the door here, which is just kind of binding and things like that. So just kind of keep an eye on that. And then you have the lounge room, which again, the doors are not closing properly. So this could be an indication of something happening underneath. And a bit of settlement cracks, which you're going to find on every one of these homes. So it's not of any concern. We kind of go a little bit more when we're talking to somebody interstate, as they'll never see the house. And we just want to make sure that they have good understanding, because quite often it's very hard to get these photographs in because it's a white wall, and sometimes they just look like a white blob when we put them on the report. And here you have this rumpus area at the back, which has had a previous issue. So you can see here that the ceiling is sagging a little bit in spots. And then when it got on with the drone around with the top of the exterior of the house, you can see here there's a bit of grey paint applied to it. So this is a waterproofing membrane. So this would have been applied just to prevent a previous leak. So it's just something that you want to keep an eye on. There was no moisture readings at the time of the inspection, so it is what we consider a monitoring defect. You can see where we've just discussed it that the waterproofing membrane has been applied. And here, this is just those panels. Look, it's again, it's an old house. It was one of the, back in the 80s, and that these were quite common to be put in walls, and they just kind of bored and things like that. So it's more just letting the client know that they're just a monitoring defect again. And some hairline cracks, which are not of any concern. And here you just got the binding doors and things like that. So when we got things like that, when we go and rate the house, we want to see if there's any issues underneath that are causing any problems here with the doors. It's a very simple thing to do, just opening and closing doors, but you can tell a lot in regards to what to expect when you go underneath the house. And it's something we recommend you do as well. If you're going around just checking, open and close the doors, if there's binding doors and it's binding severely, well then the stumps may need to be packed, etc. So going into bedroom 1 here, again, the doors misaligned. So we're kind of, as soon as you get to that point, it's like, okay, we have 3 doors that are kind of catching and things like that. So we need to make sure when we go underneath the house that there isn't something causing these issues. And bedroom 2, everything's pretty good as well. So not any concern here. So when we step into any bathroom, we can see we take the overall photograph. I switch on all the taps. So when I take a photograph to show that I've left the taps running, just so I can imitate a long bath or a shower, so the customer can see that we've checked everything as well. And where possible, if I always try to get a moisture meter on the backs of the walls. Sometimes there's tiles in a way and things like that, or there's wardrobes and that, so we can't do it. And I never put a moisture meter on a tiled wall because it gives you false readings. And I don't put it on the floor either. So you can see here just overall condition, everything's pretty good. Again, we're checking taps here and that as well, so there's no leaks underneath, and the extractor fan is working. So, and very similar here, checking, make sure that the toilet and that is flushing, and we're checking for moisture readings. Kitchen laundry, very similar again. There's overall photograph of the area, checking for any settlement cracks and things like that. So you can see here, this most likely was where a wall was removed. So when you got these patching that I've done, it's just any kind of expansion and contraction of the home. You'll find that these will, wherever the plaster was applied, you can sometimes see the cracks reappear, and then homeowners patches over time. So it's a kind of a patch and paint as advised. Again here, just checking the taps, looking for leaks. Everything's pretty good there. And then inside the laundry, which again, your overall photograph, you can see what we're looking at. You've got wash machines and things like that in the way, so we can't see underneath them, but we do have some settlement cracks that are visible. Just checking for leaks underneath. And this is the bit that I suppose that you can't see. So this is what you're really looking for to find out any issues inside the roof cavity and underneath the house. So inside the roof void, we take our overall photographs, and you can see there's lots of insulation, so it's a well insulated home. And we have here that it was a conventional cut roof, so we'll just document that for you so you can see what we're looking at. So no concerns inside the roof. And here is I suppose the main bit. We obviously leave the best to last with the subfloors. So we put our gear on, and this has lots of ducted heating systems, so there will be limitations getting underneath this house. But we have ways of trying to get underneath without causing any damages around the ducted heating system. So you can see here that we've got our subfloor observations, so defects were present. And this was actually, I don't think I've ever come across this, or maybe twice in 13 years. So there's you're going to go back up here, so you can see here that there is some concrete stumps at the back of the house. And the major defect is that there was 2 rows of intended stump locations were observed with footing holes present. However, the stumps were missing, and a timber bearer has been installed on its flat and fixed to the floor frame with without adequate vertical support benefit. So these are what you should generally have, approximately 2.4 to 3 meters, and there was a noticeable bounce in these areas. So you can see as it come down here, you have your bearer, that's this piece of timber here, that should be on its edge. When it's on its flat, I think it's 8 times weaker. So then you have also these holes are put in, but nobody put the stumps in. So yes, it is a major building defect, but really when I described it to the customer, I said, look, this is something that can be fixed. And I do think from memory that they were able to negotiate the cost of this. So I think they got 15 grand off the house or something like that because of these areas that were missing. This was not very noticeable, a slight bounce above, but you can always find a little bit of bounce in these homes anyways, and it could generally mean just needs to be packed. But this was also not visible from the outside, so if I hadn't crawled and got myself underneath some of those ducted heating vents or the ducts, I wouldn't have been able to see this. And then if something goes underneath there in the future, like electrician, or to get some wires done and stuff like that, and to find this, well, then I'd be in big trouble as well for not, being thorough enough to get in and around. So I was quite happy with this pickup. So then you just have your conclusion, and as you can see here, just yes, there was a major defect, and the minor defects like the weatherboards and things that you expect to find, and the house was average. So it didn't, when I put down average as well, some people think I'm, been very hard on the house, but it's just your average home. There was no major structural problems. Yes, we have this item here that could be addressed, and the client was going to get it addressed, so it wasn't a deal breaker. And especially when we come with this information, we don't come with scare tactics. We have a very good way of explaining everything and ensuring that the customer completely understands what's happening, and then they make an informed decision, and quite often they move forward knowing, yes, we've got problems here, but we've either negotiated it or we're happy with the price we're getting your house at, and we can continue. And this is just again, I mentioned terms and conditions. We can't get out of these, and these have to be in it. So they're just general items that we have in here. It's an audit compliance, a certificate, etc. Visual inspection. Just are using it when we use the drone. And here is just the categories of cracking that I mentioned. So your 0 to 2 here is up to 5 mil. Anything above that, we kind of start pushing it into whether it's a major structure or major building defect. So then you scroll down and we end up at the termite inspection. So this is just basically looking to see if there's any evidence of termite activity. And there is a bit of a summary at the start here. So timber pest, and it just kind of yes, no answers basically at the start. And this house was fine. So the only kind of timber pest that we found was that decay on the weatherboards on the outside. So this is very similar in regards to limitations and that as well. So with this house overall, yeah, look, the customer is very happy to move forward, and it's just all of these are just basically what to expect moving forward in regards to moisture readings. This here, it was a tree stump in the ground, so any tree stump is going to be decaying, dying timber, and rotting timber, should I say, and that can potentially attract termites. So it's best to get those removed, any kind of conditions around the house. Now, as a company, we always recommend a treatment. So this is a home that we consider to be an unprotected home. So there was no evidence of any kind of termite barrier or anything like that, and there was some conditions underneath the house. So we, at the very least, we always put down moderate to high as a rating, and it's always a strong recommendation for a termite treatment. So people see that it's really just explaining to them that that's all it is. It's a rating and a recommendation. It's not a reason to not go ahead with the property. And now if there was any activity, we'd be putting down extremely high. So it's a bit different in that case. So as you can see here, strongly recommended. And this is the Australian standards. They recommend always 12 months between inspections. Nobody does it. We used to send out reminders, but nobody does it. So it's kind of up to you as a homeowner, because we often, when we're doing our own inspections, we walk in and people go, oh, I've got an inspection done 5 years ago, there was nothing then. This is nature, there's nothing stopping them coming in. So it's really important to you as a homeowner to do your own due diligence and have regular inspections carried out just for your own peace of mind. So that's just kind of just a rundown of a basic inspection, and this is just some companies that we recommend, and this is one thing you want to make sure that whoever you're engaging is a registered building practitioner. So if you have any questions on any of this, let our office know. You can call us on 0387972639, or just give us an email on reports@padinspections.com.au. Thank you.